A lonely CFO saw a poor single mother returning her baby's formula. What he did next changed everything. It was just after 5 in the afternoon, but the winter sky over Maplewood, New Jersey, had already acquired an intense and heartbreaking blue. The snow fell unceasingly, covering sidewalks and roofs. A cold wind cut through the streets, whistling through the streetlights. But Claire Whitmore continued to walk. Her blonde hair was wet and sticking to her cheeks. Her scarf, which was once navy blue, now discolored and frayed, was wrapped tightly around her neck. Her large coat billowed with each gust of wind, offering little protection against the cold. In her arms, wrapped in a worn pink blanket, she carried her 9-month-old daughter, Lily. Claire's boots crunched against the icy sidewalk. No car, no money for the bus, no family to call. Just a mother walking in the snow, chasing hope. Lily stirred gently, her little fingers peeking out of the blanket. "We're almost there, honey," said Claire, lowering her head. "Just a little more." The automatic doors of Megamart opened with a whoosh, releasing warm air that stung her eyes. Claire took a cart, gently placed Lily in the child's seat, and adjusted the blanket around her. "We're just going to get what we need," she whispered. She moved quickly, but carefully, through the aisles, choosing white bread, a bag of oats, and discounted apples, bruised but edible. Her eyes reviewed each price tag. $23. That was all she had. Then she reached the formula aisle. Her stomach knotted when she saw it. There it was. The only brand that Lily could tolerate. Hypoallergenic, soy-based, recommended by the doctor. The only one that didn't cause painful rashes. The price, $41.99. More than $18 out of her reach. Claire stared at the jar, her mind desperately looking for solutions. Maybe I could put back the bread, the oats, the apples. But no, even if I put everything back, it would still not be enough. Her hand clung to the jar. What if I asked to pay later or leave my name? "I'll be back on Friday." With her heart beating fast, she took the jar and gently placed it in the cart anyway. At the checkout, Claire unloaded her items one by one. The cashier, a teenager, was chewing gum without raising her eyes. $47.83. Claire opened her wallet and spread her wrinkled bills. Then the coins. Everything. "I only have 23, she said gently. "I'll have to return the formula." The cashier, without saying a word, took the jar and slipped it out of the display. A man behind her sighed loudly. Claire's cheeks burned. She looked at Lily, who began to fuss. Claire touched her and caressed her cheek. "Are you okay, honey?" she whispered. "Mommy is with you." She paid what she could, about $11, and pushed the cart to the exit, with her back bent, trying to make herself smaller. Outside, the snow fell harder now. At the other end of the store, near the coffee shop, a man had been watching. Daniel Rhodes, 37 years old, tall, with a dark coat and leather gloves, was standing next to a shopping cart where his 5-year-old daughter, Isla, was swinging her legs, drinking apple juice. He had seen the whole scene. The silent calculations, the anguish, the formula left behind. Isla tugged on his coat. Dad. Yes, honey. Why doesn't that baby have milk? Daniel didn't answer right away. 4 years had passed since Emily's death. 4 years of spreadsheets, meetings, routines. He provided for Isla, protected her. But the sensitivity that had been silenced inside him for a long time resurfaced now. Something in the stillness of that young mother, her exhaustion, her silent strength, moved something in him, something he hadn't felt in years. Isla looked up again. Can we help you, Dad? Daniel looked at her, then towards the doors where Claire had disappeared in the snow. He sighed slowly. Yes, he said. I think we can. Daniel moved quickly, taking long, determined strides as he turned the cart back towards the baby aisle. He barely noticed the other shoppers around him. Isla, sitting in the child's seat of the cart, looked at him. Her cheeks were still pink from the heat of the store. Are we going to get the milk now? She asked. Yes, honey, Daniel said softly. We're going to get the milk. He stopped in the same place where Claire had been minutes earlier. The same bottle of hypoallergenic formula was sitting intact on the shelf. Daniel took it without hesitation. His eyes fixed on a nearby shelf of fleece-lined mittens for small children, and he added them too. Then, on impulse, he went to the bakery and took a packet of soft rolls. In the hot food section, he took a bowl of chicken noodle soup and another of macaroni and cheese. Hot, satisfying, comforting. He thought it was the right thing to do. He paid in cash and did not wait for the change. Outside, the cold struck him instantly. The snow had intensified, covering the parking lot with a fresh, white layer. Daniel took off his coat and put Isla under one arm, protecting her while scanning the parking area. He saw her almost immediately. She was standing at the edge of the parking lot, under the small shelter of the bus stop, with her arms around Lily. Her other hand was holding a small supermarket bag. Her lips were pale, her face stiff from the cold. She was gently caressing Lily, whispering to calm her down. Daniel crossed the frozen parking lot, with Isla clinging to his side. He stopped a few feet away. Excuse me, he said gently. Claire turned around, her eyes widening when she saw him. She instinctively drew Lily closer to her. Daniel handed her a brown paper bag. I think you dropped this. Claire blinked, confused. No, that's not mine. He didn't move. Now it is. Her face tightened. I can't accept this. Daniel looked at Lily, then back at Claire. It's not charity, he said. It's empathy. She hesitated, her arms clenching protectively around her daughter. Daniel took a deep breath and added, As a father, I only wanted to help a mother. Something changed in Claire's expression. Her eyes filled with tears. She blinked quickly, trying to contain them. Before she could respond, Isla peeked from under Daniel's coat. You're Lily's mother, aren't you? I saw you in the store, she said cheerfully. You look like the princess in my fairy tale book. Claire's lips trembled. She looked at the girl with big, confident eyes. Do you really believe that? She whispered. Isla nodded. You held her like that, she added, imitating Claire's gentle rocking. My mommy did that too. Claire put a hand to her mouth, turning slightly. She didn't speak for a few long seconds. Then with trembling hands, She took the bag. "Thank you," she said in a hoarse voice. "I don't even know what to say." "You don't have to say anything," Daniel replied softly. For a moment, they remained silent, the snowflakes accumulating on their coats. Lily had calmed down again, curled up against her mother's chest. Isla rested her head on Daniel's shoulder. Claire looked down at the street. The bus hadn't arrived yet. The wind was howling among the trees. Daniel followed her gaze. "Where do you live?" Claire hesitated. "In Maple and Fifth. It's about a mile away." Isla spoke up. "Let us take you." She quickly shook her head. "No, I can't ask you that." "You aren't asking," he said. "I'm offering." Another pause. Claire's grip on Lily tightened. "I usually don't accept help from strangers," she murmured. Daniel's tone was kind but firm. "I understand, but it's too cold for pride tonight." Their gazes met, and something passed between them. A silent understanding. No pity, no obligation, just recognition. Claire looked at Lily, then at Isla, who gave her a sleepy smile. "For her," she finally said, barely audible above the wind. "Just for her?" Daniel nodded. "Of course." He turned and led them through the parking lot towards his SUV. Claire followed him, her arms tightly around her daughter, the warm paper bag pressed to her chest like something precious. The snow continued to fall around them, soft and constant. It could have been a forgotten night, but for both of them, it was the night when everything began in silence. The apartment building was hidden between two shutters on a quiet street. The snow piled up along the sidewalk. Daniel parked in the narrow lot, noting the cracked pavement and the flickering porch light. Claire shifted Lily to one arm, holding the food in the other, and searched for her keys carefully. Daniel stood next to her, with Isla curled up against his chest. "I know it's not much," Claire said softly, almost apologizing, "but it's safe and warm most nights." They entered a narrow hallway with peeling wallpaper and creaking floors. Claire led them up the stairs to a faded green door and opened it. The apartment was small, a bedroom, a living room, and a kitchen, but it was spotless. A soft lavender aroma floated in the air. The secondhand furniture was tidy. A lamp cast a warm glow. In the corner, there was a pile of children's books and a basket of handmade toys. Paper towel roll tunnels, bottle cap trucks, yarn puppets. A quilt was folded on the sofa, its pieces sewn from old shirts and floral prints. Above it hung a black and white photo of a young man in uniform. The frame was simple. The caption read, "Sergeant Thomas Whitmore, Operation Iraqi Freedom, 2004. Daniel paused. "That was my grandfather," said Claire, setting the bag on the counter. "He raised me after my parents died. He was everything good in my life." Daniel sighed. "He looks proud, strong." "He was," she whispered. "He died a few months before Lily was born." Claire took Lily's coat off and laid her on a blanket on the rug. The baby babbled and grabbed her toes. Daniel set Isla down next to her. "Are you all right, honey?" he asked. "So little." Isla laughed, gently rubbing Lily's hand. "Hi, baby," Lily squealed, clapping. Isla made funny faces, causing more laughter. Claire watched them. Her facial expression softened. They're getting along. It seems so, Daniel replied with a slight smile. He hesitated, not knowing whether to leave, but Claire pointed to the kitchen. Do you want some hot chocolate? I always have some for nights like this. Daniel agreed. Of course. Thank you. Uh-huh. She filled 2 cups of hot chocolate from a saucepan, added a pinch of cinnamon, and handed him one. Sitting on the arm of the sofa, she said to him, I was in college, she said in a low voice. Business administration. I wanted to work in nonprofit organizations. What happened? Daniel asked. I got pregnant. My boyfriend wasn't ready. I thought I could balance studies, work, being a mother. But life doesn't always bend to hope. He remained silent, listening. They took my scholarship. My grandfather had just passed away. Without family help, I dropped out of school. I took any job, cashier, waitress, nanny. She laughed a little. Now I'm a full-time mother and I do everything else part-time. Daniel sipped the hot chocolate, light, too sweet, but it warmed him up more than he expected. On the other side of the room, Isla was lying on her stomach, whispering to Lily, who was babbling with laughter. Her laughter filled the apartment, soft and genuine. Daniel's gaze lingered on them, then on Claire. Something in this room. The scraps, the recycled toys, the love woven through the difficulties made him feel present. He had built his life on order and control, but here, in this modest apartment, surrounded by a warmth not bought but created, he felt something foreign. He felt the warmth of a home. Claire surprised him by looking at him. She tilted her head. What? Daniel slowly shook his head. It's just nice. She raised her eyebrows. Nice? More than nice, he admitted. It's real. They sat in silence, not uncomfortable, just at ease. From the floor, Isla looked up. Dad, can we come back tomorrow? I want to play with Lily again. Claire blinked, surprised. Her eyes went to Daniel. He looked at his daughter, then back to Claire. We'll see, he said softly, with a voice colored by something unsaid. Claire lowered her gaze to his hands. For the first time in a long time, her home didn't feel like just a matter of survival. It felt like the beginning of something else. The house was dark when Daniel returned. The snowflakes clung to his coat as he entered, and he brushed them off. Isla had fallen asleep on the way home, her heavy head against his shoulder. He carried her upstairs, tucking her under the quilt that Emily had sewn years ago. She stirred but did not wake up. Downstairs, the silence was palpable. Daniel's thoughts returned to the small apartment, to Claire's soft voice, to Lily's bright eyes, and to the laughter of 2 little girls who had met just a few hours ago, but who sounded like sisters. He poured a glass of water, set it aside, and walked to the closet in the hallway. From the top shelf, he took down an old cedar box whose lid was stiff from lack of use. Inside were discolored photographs, medals, and a bundle of letters tied with a green cord. Daniel sat down by the fireplace. He untied the bundle. His fingers trembled slightly. His father, George Rhodes, had written often during his deployment in Iraq. But one letter had always remained in his memory. He unfolded it now. August 3rd, 2004. The convoy was hit by an IED on the outskirts of Mosul. I woke up under twisted metal, bleeding, pinned down. I thought it was the end. Then someone pulled me out. A young soldier, blonde, with piercing eyes, strong as hell. He dragged me away. He stayed until the paramedics arrived. His name was Sergeant Thomas Whitmore. I owe him my life. I owe it to him. If I don't return, tell Daniel about him. Tell him that there are men who risk everything for someone they barely know, and that we never forget those men. Daniel's eyes fixed on the name Thomas Whitmore. He read it 2 or 3 times. Then he noticed the small photograph in the envelope. A young soldier standing in front of a Humvee with his helmet under his arm, a tired smile on his face. The corners were bent, but the features were clear. Daniel froze. It was the same face he had seen on Claire's wall. His chest tightened. He took out his phone and quickly scrolled to find the photo he had taken. A momentary distraction from her living room that he hadn't deleted. There it was. The same wooden frame, the same soldier's eyes looking at him with a silent resolve. Her grandfather, Thomas Whitmore. Daniel sat back, stunned. His father's words resounded in his ears. Never forget the man who saved me. Now, decades later, he had sat in the house of that man's granddaughter. He had shared hot chocolate and had seen her baby and his daughter laughing together on the floor. And Claire had not said a word about it. Maybe she didn't even know. He felt as if time had folded over itself, joining the past and the present in a single knot. He leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees, with the photo in one hand and the letter in the other. For a long time, he simply breathed, shaken by the weight of the revelation. Then softly, but with conviction, he spoke out loud. I will not pay this back with money. I will pay it with something that lasts. Not with charity, not with a check written out of pity, but with something that would honor the sacrifice of a soldier. Something that could carry a legacy forward. He looked at the flickering light of the fire, the old photograph warm in his palm. This was not an obligation. It was not about recognition. It was about doing the right thing. Daniel Rhodes would find a way not only to help Claire survive, but to give her the opportunity to build, to grow, to transmit the strength of the man who once had pulled his father from the fire and smoke. Something lasting, something that would honor the past and change the future. The phone rang just when Claire was folding clothes next to Lily's playmat. The baby cried, biting a rubber teether, her legs kicking in the air. Claire picked up the phone, holding it between her cheek and shoulder as she folded a worn-out onesie. Hello? Hello? Could I speak to Ms. Claire Whitmore? Her heart beat fast. I'm Claire. Hello, I'm Janet from the Maplewood Veterans Support and Outreach Center. I believe you applied a few months ago. Claire straightened up. Yes, for the administrative assistant position. We apologize for the delay, said Janet politely. There have been some changes, a new program. We would like to invite you for an informal chat. Claire blinked. Really? Yes, of course. I would love to. They set a time for the following afternoon. After hanging up, Claire stared at the phone in disbelief. Lily smiled at her, and Claire laughed, overwhelmed by emotion. "Maybe this is it," she whispered. "Maybe this is the opportunity we were waiting for." The next day, she put on the only professional clothes she had, a second-hand blouse and pants. She left Lily with a kind neighbor and walked a few blocks to the Veterans Center, her hands clasped in her pockets. The red brick building stood modestly under a waving flag. A plaque near the door honored local servicemen and women. Claire paused, took a deep breath, and entered. Janet welcomed her into the lobby with a warm smile. 50-something years old, short silver hair, kind eyes, Claire said, shaking her hand. "Thank you for seeing me." They sat in a small conference room. Janet offered her coffee, which Claire courteously declined. "We remember your application," Janet began, looking through a folder. "At that time, we did not have the resources, but that has changed. A new grant has just arrived, unexpected, generous, and very specific." "How specific?" Claire asked. Janet smiled. "It was established in honor of a veteran, Sergeant Thomas Whitmore." Claire was stunned. The donor requested that the fund support the descendants of veterans, especially those overcoming difficulties. "Its name is the Whitmore Scholarship. Are you not related to him?" Claire's voice barely exceeded a whisper. "He was my grandfather. He raised me after my parents died. He served in Iraq." Janet nodded, sitting back. "We imagined so. Your application mentioned your family background. When your name appeared, several of us were shocked." Claire's mind reeled. "This scholarship," continued Janet, "fully supports you through training, provides you with a paid position here, and if you wish, will finance your return to college. It is a path forward, not just a job." Claire stared at her. "But why me?" "You are capable, resilient, and motivated," said Janet warmly. "And the donor asked that the first beneficiary be someone directly related to Sergeant Whitmore. That's you." Claire put her hand to her chest. I don't know what to say." "Say yes," said Janet with a smile. Claire let out a trembling laugh that turned into a sob. She nodded, tears filling her eyes. "Yes, yes. I would be honored. I would be so honored." Later, after completing some paperwork and receiving a training schedule, Claire sat in the central garden with the afternoon sun shining over the snow. Her breathing was slow and steady. Everything felt unreal. Just a week ago, she was returning formula at the checkout. Now this, a second chance, a future. Before leaving, she turned to Janet. "Can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Who established the scholarship?" Janet hesitated, then she smiled gently. "They asked for anonymity. All we know is that they wanted to honor a man who once saved their father's life." Claire held her breath. She didn't say a word. She didn't ask any more, but something stirred in her heart, a silent certainty. Whoever it was, not only had they honored her grandfather, but they had changed her life. The invitation arrived in a crisp white envelope, handwritten, with the embossed seal of the Maplewood Veterans Support and Outreach Center. Claire turned it over several times before opening it. "You are cordially invited to speak at the inaugural ceremony of the Whitmore Scholarship in honor of Sergeant Thomas Whitmore. As the first recipient, your presence and your voice would be a vital part of the celebration." Her heart beat strongly. It wasn't just a piece of paper. It was her grandfather's name remembered. And somehow, she'd been chosen to speak. The morning of the event dawned clear, with golden sunlight filtering through the bare trees. Claire stood in front of the mirror in her modest bedroom, smoothing the pleats of a dark blue dress she had borrowed from a friend. Lily sat on the bed next to her, wearing a white cotton dress, laughing at her reflection. Claire took a deep breath. "For Grandpa," she whispered. "And for you." The lobby was buzzing when she arrived. Rows of chairs, photos of veterans, flags, and a sign that read, "The Whitmore Scholarship, honoring legacies, building futures." Claire entered, with Lily in one arm and a folder with her speech in the other. Her heels clicked softly on the polished floor as she headed towards the stage. Then she saw him. Daniel. He was standing near the front, wearing a tailored dark suit, with his hand gently resting on Isla's shoulder. Isla was wearing a pale yellow dress, her curls bouncing when she saw Claire enter. "Lily!" Isla shouted, breaking free and running towards Claire. Claire barely had time to react. Isla threw herself into her arms, hugging her and Lily tightly. Isla leaned in and whispered, "Miss Claire, if you are already Lily's mother, can you be mine as well?" Claire held her breath, her eyes filled with tears. She laughed, stunned. Then she hugged Isla back. Daniel watched, wordless, but his eyes spoke volumes. Warmth, pride, a tenderness that Claire had almost forgotten existed. Then she looked at him, realizing that it had always been him, the one who had left the formula that snowy night, the one who was behind the scholarship, the one who had caught her when she didn't even know she was falling. Their eyes met. There was no need for words. But on the other side of the room, another pair of eyes watched. Veronica Ashford, executive vice president of Daniel's firm, always impeccable, always serene. Now she was standing at the back, with her lips pursed and a frown on her face. She had admired Daniel in her own way. She had respected him. She had envied him. She had watched with what delicacy he had rebuilt his life after Emily's death. And now she saw him smiling at this woman in a borrowed dress. Her chest tightened. When Claire's name was announced, the crowd fell silent. She walked towards the stage with Lily in her arms, the folder of her speech held firmly, her heart beating loudly. I never expected to be here," Claire began, with a voice trembling at the start. "My name is Claire Whitmore, and I feel honored to be the first beneficiary of the scholarship, named after my grandfather, Sergeant Thomas Whitmore. He was my hero, and he taught me that sacrifice is not only on the battlefield. It is about love, service, and refusing to give up on those who matter to you." She paused, looking at Daniel. Her voice steadied. "This scholarship not only helped me financially, it reminded me that where I come from still matters, that his legacy did not end with his last breath, that he lives through me. And now, thanks to this gift, I can build something for my daughter that I never had, a future." The crowd burst into applause. Daniel, normally reserved, applauded slowly, with pride shining in his eyes. Claire came down from the stage with a full heart. Between the applause and the smiles, Veronica slipped into a corner. At first, silence. Then the whispers spread. "I heard that she used to work part-time as a waitress. She lives in low-income housing on 5th Street. It is curious how the first scholarship goes to someone seen with Daniel Rhodes. Veronica's voice was never loud, but always suggestive. By the end of the afternoon, the atmosphere had changed. The celebration was still going on, but behind the polite smiles there were glances, silent doubts planted among the guests. Quantity. Koe, holding Lily close, had no idea how far those whispers would go. Not yet. The conference room of the Maplewood Veteran Center was unusually quiet. The board members sat in a semicircle, with papers carefully stacked in front of them and steaming cups of coffee. Everything seemed orderly, but tension floated in the air. Claire sat at the far end of the table, her hands tightly intertwined in her lap, her heart beating powerfully in her chest. She was wearing the same navy blue blouse from her first interview here. Lily was at home with a neighbor, oblivious to the storm her mother was facing now. Opposite her was Veronica Ashford, impeccable in a matching gray blazer, with perfect posture. Her voice was calm, but her words were sharp as she addressed the meeting. "I think," Veronica began, "that in the spirit of transparency, we should re-evaluate the selection of this year's Whitmore Scholarship recipient, as concerns have been raised by the board. There have been questions," continued Veronica, "from donors and colleagues, questions about Ms. Whitmore's connection to Mr. Daniel Rhodes, the anonymous donor. Some feel that this relationship could have influenced the selection process." Claire felt a knot in her stomach. "This is not a formal accusation," said Veronica, with her hands clasped. "It is simply a matter of ethics. If personal relationships are influencing charitable decisions, we must ensure that this organization remains above reproach." Silence. All eyes turned to Claire. Her cheeks flushed, not out of guilt, but out of contained fury. She opened her mouth, but before she could speak, a chair scraped back. Daniel stood up at the end of the room. Without a suit, wearing only a charcoal sweater with his sleeves rolled up, he dominated the space like a storm about to break. He did not look at Veronica. He looked directly at the board. "If we are talking about transparency," he said with a firm voice, "let me be clear." He opened a folder and pulled out an old letter with yellowed edges and soft corners. "This is a letter that my father wrote in 2004. He was serving in Iraq when his convoy was attacked. He was trapped under a burning vehicle. A soldier, Sergeant Thomas Whitmore, risked his life to pull my father out." Daniel handed the letter to the chairman of the board, who began to read it in silence. "That man saved my father's life," Daniel continued. "Claire's grandfather." The room was silent. I did not know who Claire was when I saw her for the first time. I only saw a mother struggling in a store. Later, when I visited her home, I saw a photo on her wall. I recognized the name, the face. I went home and found this letter." He paused. "I did not give money to Claire. I did not give her a handout. I created the Whitmore Scholarship to honor a man whose sacrifice changed the future of my family. Claire was chosen not for what she is to me, but for what she is to him." A sigh went through the room. Claire stood up slowly, her voice low but clear. "I did not ask for anything special. I never mentioned my grandfather's connection to Daniel. I did not even know there was one." She looked around the room. "My grandfather did not save a man to get a scholarship for his granddaughter 20 years later. He did it because it was the right thing. and I'm here because I want to live in a way that honors that choice." Her voice wavered for half a second, but then steadied. "This is not a favor, it's a legacy, and I will not apologize for being part of it." Silence again. But it had changed. The tension was gone, replaced by a real heavy silence. The chairman finally looked up. "I think we owe Ms. Whitmore and Mr. Rhodes our thanks," he said, "and Sergeant Whitmore our deepest respect." Then he turned to Veronica, "And maybe it's time to reconsider your role in this initiative." There were no screams or drama, but the message was final. Veronica got up, her jaw set, and left the room. Daniel looked at Claire across the table. He did not smile, but the look he gave her, full of calm admiration, deep respect, and something more tender blooming underneath, said more than any words could. And for the first time, Claire no longer felt that she had to fight to be seen. Her place had already been earned. 2 years later, the house on Willow Lane was small but full of life. The morning sunlight filtered through the kitchen windows, casting golden patterns on the wooden floors. Laughter resounded from the backyard, where 2 little girls chased butterflies among rows of wildflowers, their giggles rising with the breeze. Claire was standing next to the stove, flipping pancakes, wearing a soft robe over her pajamas. Her blonde hair was gathered in a messy bun, with a pencil stuck behind her ear. She was reading an email on her phone, something about the next meeting of the Whitmore Scholarship Foundation Board. She smiled. Executive director. Sometimes she still couldn't believe it. The girl who once dreamed of building a better world now had the power to do it. A scholarship, a family, a life, all at once. Daniel came in, still in his sweatpants and a simple white t-shirt, his hair slightly messy from sleep. He leaned over to kiss Claire's cheek, stealing a pancake from the plate as he passed by. "You have a board meeting today. Don't forget," he said with a smile. "I won't. And you are making lunch for the girls?" she replied, giving him a playful swat on the arm. From outside, Isla's voice shouted, "Mommy Claire, come and see the worm Lily found." Claire's heart swelled with joy when she heard it. Mommy Claire. The first time Isla had said it, completely on her own, Claire had cried for an hour. She went out to the porch just in time to see Lily, now 2.5 years old, holding a worm that was wiggling with delight, while Isla applauded by her side. Daniel followed her with 2 juice boxes, giving one to each girl. Lily leaned against his leg and with a small smile said, "Thank you, Daddy." He was still surprised to hear it sometimes, but every time it stitched something new in his heart. That afternoon, they took a walk in the park, their favorite weekend ritual. The leaves began to change color, and the sun filtered through the trees in soft golden layers. Claire took Lily's hand. Daniel took Isla's. In the middle of the path, Isla looked at Claire with thoughtful eyes. "I wish you had been my mommy when I was little," she said. Claire's throat tightened. She squeezed the girl's hand. "But you know what?" Isla continued, her face lit up with a smile. "Now I love you twice because I have you now, and I remember when I didn't have you." Claire leaned down and hugged her with teary eyes. Daniel approached, wrapping an arm around Claire's back as she stood up. They stood there, their girls in front of them, hand in hand, framed by the sunlight, the leaves, and the warmth of something complete. Daniel looked at her with soft eyes. "They needed you," he said. "And me too." Claire smiled, leaning into him, her voice a whisper against his shoulder. "We found each other. And together, with a love not borrowed, not indebted, but freely chosen, they kept walking. Thank you for watching this moving journey of love, resilience, and second chances. If this story touched your soul, reminded you of the silent heroes of your life, or simply made you shed a tear, don't forget to subscribe and hit the like button to support stories that move the soul. We bring you real emotional stories that heal, inspire, and stay with you long after the screen turns off. Until next time, take care and never stop believing in the power of kindness.